Everybody over there on the end, we're inviting you to please not sit in that far side, but to sit in the middle. If you wouldn't mind moving, because it just feels too empty. We would like to have, please move. Please sit in the middle, 3, together.
Yes, we want you all to be sandwiched together in the middle sections.
Please move over, because you're going to miss. These are the best seats, and they're the emptiest.
There's a pen there too.
So I won't forget, I highlighted the speeches.
Yeah.
I need water, I need some water. No, that's yours. Must have been.
I didn't. There's more in every year. So, feels like we're ready, right? It's gonna be fresh. Right? It won't sound like old. Yeah. Now, are they changing all of them, or some that I need to do?
She's going to do the intermittent. Okay. So it's
Give me my full squats.
all right, 4 minutes after. What
Let's start.
Can we start?
All right, I say we begin. Let's start on time. Yep. Call them all up for
Yeah, first press.
Ali. Sure. With them still down there? Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. If you would take your seats, we're about to begin. And as you're taking your seats, I would like you to take a moment and make sure that your cell phones are turned off or at least to silent. Just wait for people to take their seats. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Oh, it's good to know. This is, you had your afternoon nap. Now it's time.
Has your coffee.
Right.
I am Rabbi Susan Nanus, and it is my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon to our Wilshire Boulevard Temple Adult B'nei Mitzvah. We say B'nei Mitzvah because a bar mitzvah is for one boy, a bat mitzvah is for one girl, or should I say male or female, and B'nai is plural. And today, as you know, we have 10 B'nai Mitzvah. When you're 13 years old, a bar or a bat mitzvah is a coming-of-age ceremony where a young Jewish teen is declared a full and responsible member of the Jewish community. When you're an adult, a bar or bat mitzvah is an empowerment ceremony. It is a spiritual rite of passage where you yourself, the adult, declare yourself a member of the community and claim your place as a full and equal participant. 6 months ago, 10 very special people joined our class, committed and determined to take the very next important step in their Jewish journeys. 7 of them were not born Jewish, but chose to join our people and our tradition. 9 of them could not read a word of Hebrew, and certainly none had ever read from the Torah or had any idea how to chant from it. One of them, I have to say, Isabella, she's you'll see her, she's coming up, joined us on Zoom from Germany every week getting up in the middle of the night because of the time difference to study with us. All of them showed up faithfully almost every Tuesday night studying Jewish texts, holidays, and life cycle events with me, and learning to read and chant Hebrew with Cantor Gurney, Cantor Don Gurney here, and Rabbi Cantor Eva Robbins, who will join us, both of them will join us in leading the service. This afternoon, we celebrate the achievements of our B'nei Mitzvah and the fulfillment of a dream that they all shared, to stand before the congregation and help lead the service, chant from the Torah, and to share some insights they have gained from their experiences. We're going to begin on page 172 with an opening hymn. Now, for those of you, this is your first time at a Jewish ceremony, our prayer book opens from right to left, first of all. And there is a transliteration of all the prayers and songs in English, so you can follow along and even try to sing along. So
I should mention also, Rabbi, that if your prayer book says on the cover for weekday and festival,
it's wrong.
You have the wrong prayer book. That's what we used this morning. Some of them may be left over in the pews. If you have one that says
Shabbat.
for Reform Siddur Shabbat, then you have the right prayer book.
And if you have the wrong one, a lot of them are behind the pews in the little
Right.
bookshelves. So we begin on page, as I said, 172.
Please join with me in the refrain, Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov. How beautiful it is, this sight that we all share in this moment. The words are also painted on above the back two doors of the sanctuary. Let's join. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, v'ani berov chasdecha, avo v'techa, אשתקה מלך על קודשך ויראתך מה טובו אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל Adonai ahavti me'od beitecha u'mekom mishkan kevodecha mishkan kevodecha ma tovu
We are now going to have our talit ceremony. A talit is a prayer shawl that you wear. You usually get one at your bar bat mitzvah. And for many of our B'nei Mitzvah, this is the first time that they're wearing their talit. I'm going to call them up by their Hebrew and English names, and they're going to bring up loved ones who will help them to put on their talit for the first time. So please come up, B'nei Mitzvah, as I call your name. Camille Schroeder, Nahum ben Avraham Visara, Paige Pearl, Delilah bat Avraham Visara, Michael Pearl, Shlomo ben Avraham Visusan, James Colford, Akiva ben Avraham Visara, Yaakov Britton, Yaakov ben Avraham Visara, Isabella Deba, Elisheba bat Avraham Visara, Mena Kearns, Miriam bat Avraham Visara, Lorraine Tamburino, Eliana bat Avraham Visara, Andrea Penn Kraus, Adel bat Label Udvora, Jody Levitas Francisco, Chana bat Yaakov Viyota.
So before you put them on your shoulders, we're going to ask you just hold them in your hands with your palms up, or any position so that you can read the bracha.
And we're going to say the blessing together. Baruch,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehit'atef batzitzit. Those last two words mean to wrap ourselves in the fringes. So you kiss the embroidered section, and then over your head and onto your shoulders.
Thank you, loved ones. You may return to your seats. And our B'nei Mitzvah may be seated. And I'm going to invite Rabbi Cantor Eva Robbins to join us as we all turn to page 175. This section are a group of blessings called the Nisim B'chol Yom, the daily miracles. Each blessing is thanking God for a small miracle that we often take for granted, like being able to stand up straight or to be able to dress ourselves. But before we do that, I'm going to invite Jody Levitas Francisco to give her bat mitzvah speech.
Welcome, everyone. I actually had my first bat mitzvah approximately 13 years ago at University Synagogue. For some reason, I didn't realize how much it would mean to me. So I only invited 6 people. Afterwards, I regretted not inviting more people to share this important milestone with me. Sorry, I didn't think I'd get so emotional. So here I am, 13 years later, plus a COVID year we're not going to count. And I've invited everyone that I know because it is a big deal. I learned how to read Hebrew. I learned the Shabbat prayers. I learned how to chant from the Torah. And I learned more about Judaism, our customs, and our religion. To do this at 13 is amazing. To do it at 50 or 60 plus is even more amazing. My goal in doing this has been to be able to participate more in services and holidays, but my biggest goal was to be able to honor my mother. When we started, I couldn't even follow along with the transliteration. And now here I am, reading Hebrew out of the Torah, or I will later. I know that my mother is up there kvelling, along with my dads and Donna, aunts and uncles, and cousins Barry and Robert, among others. I requested that in lieu of gifts, everyone please do a mitzvah. Even if you don't know me, I would request that you do a mitzvah. This is how we repair our broken world. In closing, I would like to thank Rabbi Susan, Rabbi Cantor Eva, Cantor Dawn, Hannah, my fellow B'nei Mitzvah, and my family and friends for helping me along this journey. Shabbat Shalom.
We continue on page 175. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sefer binah lehavchin ben yom uven laila.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, zokeh kepufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, roka haaretz hamayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, chamechin mitzadei gaver.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotein laya ef koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir shena menai udnuma me'afapai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorin.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Israel.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozei Israel b'gvura.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
They couldn't even read a word of Hebrew when they started. And now, it is my pleasure to invite Mena Kearns to give her bat mitzvah speech.
I remember first being drawn to the figure of Miriam when I was a child. On the most basic level, I resonated with her symbolic connection to water. First, the River Nile when she ensures Moses' safety, then culminating in the crossing of the Red Sea. Water is both dangerous and transformative, destructive and redemptive, and can swiftly and powerfully change our course or set us more gently on a journey into the unknown. But it settles us on a path, nonetheless, wrestling us from the anchor of what we knew. I was moved and inspired by Miriam's fearlessness in the face of such turbulence and change, a courage that did not falter even when she was struck down with affliction herself. I did not know them, but Miriam was the catalyst for my own journey, which brought me here today. I realize now that throughout my life, Miriam has been both a guide and a compass, and even during times when I was not as connected to my Jewish path, the prophetess was weaving her way throughout my life story. When I went to college, I joined the University Hillel, and I suppose metaphorically dove headfirst into the currents of my Jewish exploration. Yes, Like so many before me, I was drawn in by the free bagels and schmear in the quad. I became more involved with the Jewish community. I was open and thirsty for knowledge and belonging. I also felt like I was playing catch-up. So no facet of Jewish observance was off limits to me. Kabbalat Shabbat, building the sukkah, and helping prepare for Passover at Hillel, joining the Sephardic congregation in beautiful Ladino prayer in Seward Park, Purim parties, Cholent, and Saturdays at Chabad. It was also during this period that I was invited to my first Rosh Chodesh group, where I discovered Miriam had taken on new meaning to so many others, and we could envision ourselves as heirs to her legacy. It was not just me that felt the pull of restoration and sustenance from Miriam's well. However, she was no longer the undaunted young girl sending her brother downriver that I remembered as a child, but a woman celebrated in her own right and in her own complexities. When it came time to choose my Hebrew name, I wanted to give some thought to my decision, even though I already knew it was destined to be Miriam. When I entered into the living waters of the mikveh, I was renewed as Miriam, and I felt a flood of celebratory gratitude, not unlike what an ecstatic Miriam experienced when she led the Israelite women in song and dance. I felt I had come home. I could not have predicted that the next step in my path would be so definitively fitting, that for my bat mitzvah, we would be reading the Song of the Sea, and that I would be reading the verses about Miriam. I could say that this culmination is me coming full circle, but I know that the next part of my journey is only beginning. Miriam, to me, is symbolic of the miraculous nourishment Judaism has provided for me throughout my life, an infinite well of discovery. On many days, I still feel like I am at that shore, looking out into the unknown, about to step into the future, much like Miriam and the nation of Israel on the shores of the Red Sea. Not filled with apprehension, but with resolve and wonder, and now enriched by the bonds I've created with my B'nei Mitzvah class. I anticipate in what ways I can honor the legacy of Miriam and become a well of nourishment for my community, as it has been for me. Shabbat Shalom.
We continue now on page 188 with Psalm 150. There are 150 Psalms in the Bible, but this is the most joyous, I believe, and the most uplifting. Psalm 150.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, El Bekodsho. Hallelujah, Birkiyahu Zo. Hallelujah, Bigvorotav. Hallelujah, Kerov Gudula. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I love it. Page 195, we now rise for our call to prayer, a prayer called the Baruch. Please rise.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Elokeinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol.
Please be seated. We continue on page 196.
The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes, more welcomed than gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning. My Torah, my special human gift, is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeems the sun from darkness.
Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Amen.
Since she's already up here, I now invite Andrea Penkrause to give her bat mitzvah speech.
Thank you. Hi. Some people have asked me about my motivation to become a bat mitzvah. Why at all, and why now? I don't have a deep, thoughtful answer for them. Rather, it's as simple as wanting to be a part of this long tradition of my people and my heritage. My mother's bat mitzvah in the 1930s was very special and came only shortly after girls were allowed to participate in the ritual. My brother's and husband's bar mitzvahs were in the 1970s and took place in this very sanctuary. My son became a bar mitzvah with this synagogue in Israel in 2018. And now it's my turn. I'm achieving this alongside a very inspirational group of fellow students, many of whom have put in a lot of learning and effort into joining this religion that I simply got lucky enough to be born into. I'm so proud to take this step today and honored to be part of our class as we join the ranks of Jews before us. I have a long history with this synagogue, more than 50 years, attending Sunday school here in the early 1970s. I have a strong memory of walking up those stairs onto this stage to perform as Queen Esther in a Purim play. I played the docile girl as she transformed into a courageous leader to save her people. She was a woman of action and used her strengths to change history. While my achievements aren't quite as profound as Queen Esther's, my journey to today's event has been filled with many of the milestones that a rabbi typically wishes for their students. Study hard at school, go to college, make something of yourself, be good to others, continue the rituals and traditions with one's own family, observe the mitzvot, and so on. I've had 46 more years than a typical bat mitzvah to achieve these blessings. So what's next? I'll continue on the path I'm on. I intend to build even stronger bonds with my Jewish community and pursue meaningful projects and goals. I'm proud of myself for succeeding on this journey to learn to read Hebrew and chant here today. I literally could not read a word of Hebrew prior to this training, and I learned so much all within just 6 months. I had a lot of help along the way from Rabbi Cantor, Eva Robbins, and my partner in this, my wonderful husband, Rick, who spent a lot of time working with me on my Hebrew and helping me with the chanting. I'm appreciative of this synagogue and the efforts of Rabbi Nanus, Cantor, Gurney, and Hannah to make this program available to congregants. Thank you to all these important teachers and guides throughout this process, and especially to Rick. And to my friends and family who are watching or here today, thank you for helping me celebrate. Finally, I want to acknowledge my son, Dylan. When I told him about my plans for this day, he was very enthusiastic in his support. He inspired me with his own path to become a bar mitzvah. He easily agreed to the study program and truly never once complained about the process, and left me feeling empowered that I too could accomplish this. Today, I wear this talit that Dylan designed and painted when he was 13. The three of us sat for many hours, tying knots and winding the fringes. The 8 strings, 5 knots, and the numerical value of the word tzitzit in Hebrew all add up to 613, the number of commandments in the Torah. By wearing this around me, I feel God's presence as well as my responsibility to mitzvot. I feel blessed to join my immediate family, this family of congregants today, and the larger family of Jews worldwide as I stand before you as a bat mitzvah, a complete Jewish woman, perhaps a little older than most, but no less proud. Shabbat Shalom.
The central prayer in our liturgy and in other parts of Jewish life is the Shema. It is a symbol of our oneness with God and our oneness with each other. And we are going to chant it now, led by Camille. So please turn to page 200 and rise.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vayeh.
Please be seated as I invite our B'nei Mitzvah to help us with the V'ahavta. Page 201.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובבטחך בדרך, ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים. Mitzrayim, liot lahem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem.
Thanks, Don. Continuing on page 201, the English translation. Please join me. Love Adonai, your God, with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God.
It struck me that we're using the word mitzvah and mitzvot a lot, and maybe some people don't know what that is, and that is literally a commandment. We also think of it as a good deed, or I call it a holy obligation. It's a commandment, but it also brings blessings to the person who does the commandment and the person who is the recipient of the commandment, if it entails such. We continue now with a part of our liturgy that we say every day, really. However, it's very special today because it is also part of our Torah portion. Today, the Song of the Sea. It's the Micha Mocha, the section where we talk about how great God is compared to other gods and what the Israelites sang after they crossed the Red Sea. And I invite Yaakov up to come in.
We are on page 204, ladies and gentlemen. Michamochai ba'elem Adonai, Mikamocha nader bakodesh, Nora teilot ose pele. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders?
And now I invite everyone to join now in singing the Micha Mocha. Even if you don't know this tune, you're going to feel like you know it. Micha Mocha b'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot, O Sefer, one more time. Micha Mocha b'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot, O Sefer. Shira Karasha, Shibekurim Neshim Chazavat Hayam, Yachad Kulomodu, Vimelichu Veyamaru, Adonai Imolo Leolam Vaed, Su Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, ופדקנו ממך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני קהל Israel.
It is now my pleasure to invite Camille Schroeder to give his bar mitzvah speech.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming, particularly for the front row right here. Sorry, I'm quiet. This particularly, thank you, has felt like both a long time coming, but also it happened maybe a little too quickly. I've been equal parts excited and terrified because I'm not good at public speaking, especially in Hebrew, which I don't quite know. But I'm also excited because this is the next chapter in my Jewish journey. My Nisim Bechol Yom, I think I said that right, translates to thank you for making me free. And I think that applies to my entire journey because I like to think I'm not free because I became Jewish, but I became Jewish because I was free. Because when I was 21, I made an agreement with myself to shed previous expectations and limitations. I started to become my best self and doing exactly what I wanted. I made the conscious choice to be free, which ended up letting me explore this side of my identity as well, and it changed my life. Because I don't really think it's a coincidence that my life really took off in the best possible way after converting. Not to make this sound like an acceptance speech, but I have some people I would like to thank. I would like to thank my grandfather, who has passed, for being Jewish, and for his parents and their parents and so on. That's a given. He wasn't a particular fan of being Jewish, but he still was, like, almost out of spite. But he also loved that I did whatever I wanted to do, so he would love this. I also want to thank the girl that I shared a media studies class with, who was one of the first super enthusiastic people, this was like 6 years ago, enthusiastic about me wanting to convert. And also all the rabbis and cantors here, particularly Rabbi Susan Nanus, Rabbi Bo Shapiro, Rabbi Eva Robbins, and Cantor Gurney. I would like to thank them for making me feel very welcome here. And also there was this Jewish guy outside a bar on my 23rd birthday who very drunkenly told me that I would love being Jewish more than I ever thought I would. And he was correct. I'd like to thank my friends who came here today, again, in the front row, and also the ones who are watching. I have people in Arkansas, Louisiana, and my sister in Ireland. And there are some people who are a little late, but that's okay. And of course, my beautiful partner, Caesar, right there, who came here with me today and has been the absolute best possible person. All of my experiences and the people that I've met have pushed me further to what I always knew I wanted to do, which was to be Jewish to the best of my abilities. I sometimes wish I could have done this when I was 12 or 13 as a nervous teenager, although I think I'm a little more nervous now. But I'm happy for all the experiences that I've had to make this moment at 28 feel even more important. So thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
The next part of our service is called the Amidah, which means the standing prayer. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand. This prayer has two parts. The first part we chant or sing together, and then there is a personal part where we have our own thoughts, our own silent meditation. Our rabbis teach that we need both, and you really don't pray unless you have a personal connection and you pray privately and connect with God. So I'm going to ask you to stand now as we open the Ark and invite Isabella and Jody to join us.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eloheinu velohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tuvim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Hasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi gula livnei v'nehem, Leman shemo b'yahava, Melech ozir u'Moshiach mugin, Baruch atah Adonai, Mugin Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Michaye Kota Rav Lehoshia, Michael Chaim Bechesed, Michaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somev Noflim V'Rofei Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayam Emunato, Lishanei Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Memidu Mechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Ne'emat L'chayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Michaye HaKol.
We remain standing for the Kedusha. Page 208. Nikadesh et shimcha b'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה לזה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני, ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו, רחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיך. אלוהי ציון דור ודור, הללויה, 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 הללויה.
We take a few moments now for silent meditation, either reading the words in the prayer book or using our own personal thoughts.
Le dor vador, le dor vador, le dor vador, nagir gon lechach, ule nitzach nitzachim, ule nitzach nitzachim, kedushat chanach irish, le dor vador, le dor vador, le dor vador, nagid gon lechach, ule nitzach nitzachim, ule nitzach nitzachim, קדושתך נקדיר, בשיבתך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אין מלך גדול, כי אין מלך גדול, וקדוש אתה לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל, האל, הקדוש. Amen.
Please be seated. We continue with our song of peace, Sim Shalom.
Page 216. Sing. Sim shalom, tova uvracha b'olam, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, barechenu avinu, barechenu avinu, kulanu ke'echad, ke'echad, be'or, be'or panecha, ki be'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chaim v'ahavas chesed, u'tzedaka u'beracha v'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom v'tov b'necha, levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל עת בשלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום, בשלום.
Grant peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and all your people Israel and all the world. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together through the light of your presence. Truly, through the light of your presence, Adonai, our God, you gave us a Torah of life, the love of kindness, justice, blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May you see fit to bless your people and all the world at all times, at every hour, with your peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
It's my pleasure now to invite Paige Pearl to give her bat mitzvah speech.
In our Torah portion, the Israelites have just escaped Egypt. They are now free and being guided forward by God's presence. The Eternal went before them in a pillar of cloud by day to guide them along the way, and in a pillar of fire by night to give them light. My toddler, who's over there, being a perfect angel, I assume, learned to walk a couple of months ago. Of course, everyone had warned me that he would soon be covered with all sorts of scrapes and bruises from falling all over the place, but I thought, not my Freddie. He's got me to catch him before anything bad happens. All those other toddlers would have been fine if they'd had me, the greatest mom in the world, protecting them. I was going to lead Freddie in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And then at the park one day, I let Freddie try out his new skill. He was an expert, having been walking for an entire week, and before I knew what was happening, he fell flat on his face and started wailing. I picked him up, and blood was trickling down from several scrapes jutting every which way between his wet little eyes. I felt so guilty for failing to catch him in time, for letting him get hurt, for making him cry. But after flooding my friends and family with pictures of a wounded Freddie with lots of crying emojis, they reassured me that some of it's missing. They reassured me that that was what happens to all toddlers, is what I assume I wrote down. Okay, so later in the story of the Israelites, the Pharaoh orders his army. It's all, I don't know what happened. Sorry. Just talk. Okay, so basically the cloud, the pillar of cloud that was guiding the Israelites moves behind them just when the Israelites are at their most vulnerable and the Egyptian army is going after them. But it turns out that the pillar has not disappeared, so it's just behind them. Now, my husband and I, who's sitting to my right over there, are both new parents, and we're both new B'nei Mitzvah. When it comes to Judaism, we're both a lot like our toddler, alternating between charging ahead with too much confidence and falling on our faces. For the Israelites leaving Egypt, freedom was new. Learning to read Hebrew and chant our Torah portions while also learning to be parents wasn't easy, but we had illuminated pillars in front of us, the Rabbi Nanus and Cantor's Gurney, illuminating the path for us. Now our class is over, and hopefully you'll be the pillar of cloud behind us. And we're Freddie's pillars. Before he could walk, he needed us out front leading the way, and now we're behind him, and we always will be. Shabbat Shalom.
Technology, you can't trust technology. So now we come to the central part of our service, which is the reading of the Torah, where everybody is going to be reading a few verses from the Torah this morning. And if you look at the Torah, there are no vowels, there's no punctuation, and you have to learn how to chant it. It's quite an impressive feat. And I've had many of my adult B'nai Mitzvah students say to me, I have a lot more respect for my kid now who did this when they were 13 because I didn't realize how hard it was. So we're going to continue on page 244.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'maasecha malkutecha malkut kol olamim וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני ייתן. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Please rise. Avarachamim hetiva v'ritzoncha et Zion tivenech komot Yerushalayim tivenech komot Yerushalayim tivenech levad bataknu Melech el Rabbi Nisa Adon Olamim Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amon Yisrael B'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadelul Adonai iti Unaramima Shemo Yachtav. בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני הממלכה, ואני תנשא לכל ראש. על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. I'm going to turn this over. What's that? Oh, undress the Torah, please. Push down on this side.
Please be seated. To introduce the Torah portion and to give his bar mitzvah speech, I now invite Mike Pearl.
Whew, nervous. Okay. So I'm introducing the Torah portion with my speech. We are very lucky because our Torah reading and the Torah portions we've all learned for our B'nei Mitzvah are basically the big action set piece of the Torah. Maybe not the climax, if the climax is Moses delivering the Ten Commandments, but close. The parting of the Red Sea and the passage out of Egypt on dry land. The conclusion of Passover. I, in particular, will be reading the moment when God tells Moses to hold up his staff and part the sea. You've all seen the Ten Commandments. In translation, God says, "And you raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and split it, and the children of Israel shall come in the midst of the sea on dry land." And this is very much like, I think you've all seen this movie, this is very much like when Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "Use the Force, Luke," right before Luke blows up the Death Star. The difference being that Han Solo then says to Luke, "Great shot, kid, that was 1 in a million," giving Luke the credit. Whereas the Israelites then, quote, "saw the great hand which the Lord had used upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in Moses, his servant." In other words, Moses held up the staff, but God did it. Moses, for all his leadership skills, didn't have much say in the matter. He had free will, but he used his free will to be God's servant. And I like this, personally, not because I have a strong sense of myself as God's servant. I think that's a bit much. But I do feel like I get into the flow of things and go with the flow. The theme of my speech is going with the flow. My circumstances, the resources at my disposal, some of which I didn't earn, and my flawed human moral intuition are me just as much as my more active decisions, my deeds, my accomplishments are me. Maybe even more so. I like plucky, proactive heroes in my stories and in my movies, surviving by their wits. And if I were in the Sinai watching Moses, it might have looked to me like that's what he was doing. But all Moses ever got right was to go with the flow. God protected him as a baby. Moses was raised as royalty, which must have been nice. Then one day, God had some tasks for Moses to do, and he did them. Eventually, when Moses went against what God told him and hit that rock with a stick instead of talking to it in order to make water come out, God revoked his ticket to the promised land, which is a little unsatisfying on the face of it. God is often much more forgiving in the Torah. He was much more forgiving of, say, King David, who essentially murdered Uriah the Hittite. But to me, the story of Moses is a story about going with the flow. I mean, it starts with him literally floating down the Nile in a basket. The lesson I get, also, in our Torah portion, not mine, but the Mika Mocha section it looks like water in the actual Torah scroll. It's fascinating. So the lesson I get from the story of Moses is that there are powerful things at work around me, a force, if you will, controlling my circumstances, even though I feel like my actions are the most important thing in the universe. These powerful things include privileges, luck, historical circumstances that just happen to benefit me and not other people. And that's the truer explanation for the story of my life, even when I do things right. For me, history and the current state of the world are a lot like what today's Torah portion calls the great hand. I'm in control of my own story, but in crucial ways, I'm not. I'm in the driver's seat, but I didn't decide where to put the roads. I take a lot of comfort in that. And this is my off-the-cuff coda to my speech. I have increasingly not, I've been kind of unsatisfied with this speech as my classmates in B'nei Mitzvah class have heard it a couple of times now. And I'm kind of giving this speech about how I go with the flow, it's easy, it's no big deal. and you know, this is my, by the way, my father's bar mitzvah talit. So in a lot of ways, being born into this, in a sense, makes it easy, and I feel like I'm making it sound like I'm somehow separate. This is easy for me, and for everybody who describes it as a hard journey of self-discovery, that's different. I don't see it that way. Actually, I think going with the flow can be really hard, and this has been really challenging. A lot of the challenges have been inside of my own brain. They are even right now as I'm giving this speech. But I don't think that contradicts the idea of going with the flow. I think you can go with the flow and be fighting every step of the way if you know you're on the right path. And I've known that I'm on the right path ever since I, found Judaism, refound Judaism. And that concludes my speech. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
So now it's time to chant from the Torah. And I am going to be calling first Camille Schroeder and Paige Pearl.
Yamod Nachum and Abraham Usara Tamod Dalila bat Abraham Usara.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we, like, open it? Okay. Baruch Adonai Hambarak. Baruch Adonai Hambarak Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Hambarak Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim Venatan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Lord.
It's all about the Lord.
Oh, thanks.
Where are you starting from?
I start right there.
All right, so let's remove. No, this one. Yeah, but he needs it. Just bend it. Let's just take it. I know where she starts. Okay.
We good?
Hold this with your left hand.
Thank you.
You got it.
Vayehi Beshalach Paro Etam Velo Natam Elohim Derech Eretz Bilishtim Ki Karovu Ki Amar Elohim Pen Yinachem Ha'am Birotam Milchama Vishavu Mitzrayma Vayasev Elohim et Ham Derech Hamidbar Yamsuf Vachmushim Alu B'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim Vayikach Moshe Et Atmot Yosef Imo Ki Hashbeya Hishbiya Et B'nei Yisrael Lemor Pakod Yivkod Elohim Itchem V'halitem Et Atzmotai Mizeh Itechem.
Doesn't that sound familiar? Okay. Keep it right on the place. Hold it down with your left hand. There you go. Go for it.
Vayiseu misukot, vayachanu ve'etam, biksei hamibar, vadonai holech Lifnehem Yomam Be'amud Anan Lan Hotam Haderek V'Laila Be'amud Eish L'Ha'ir Lahem Lalehet Yomam V'Laila Lo Yamish Amud Hey Anan Yomam Ve'amud Ha'esh Laila Lifnei Ha'am.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, notein haTorah.
Amen.
Paige and Camille are B'nei Mitzvah. Mazel tov. For our second aliyah, I invite James Colford and Mike Pearl.
Yamod Akiva ben Abraham Usara, Shlomo ben Abraham Susan. You're up first. We're going to do the blessing together.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarad.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bahar banu mikol halamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Ufaro hikriv vayisu B'nei Israel et enehem v'hinei Mitzrayim nosea hakarehem v'hinei vayra'u ma'od vayitzaku B'nei Israel el Adonai Vayomaru el Moshe Hamibali in Kavarim B'Mitzrayim Likaktanu Lamud Bamidbar Mazot Asita lanu lahotzianu emitzrayim. Halozea hadavar asher dibarnu eleha b'mitzrayim lemor hadal mimenu Na'avda et Mitzrayim Ki tov lanu ale avod et Mitzrayim Mimutenu Bamidbar.
Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Matitzach Elai, Daber el B'nei Israel ve'isahu ve'ata harem et matecha unte et yatecha al hayam ufkaehu ve'abo B'nei Israel v'toch hayam bayabasha ve'adeu bani hineni mechazek et lev Mitzrayim ve'avo achareihem ve'kavda b'far'o uv'chol chelo barik bo uv'farashav ve'adeu Mitzrayim hi ani Adonai ve'hikavdi b'far'o barik bo uv'farashav.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam b'tah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
James and Mike are B'nei Mitzvah. And now, as long as he's here, I invite James to give his bar mitzvah speech.
Thank you. Fear. I believe it is fear that has kept me from faith most of my life. I lost my sister Corey suddenly in my early teens, and going through that loss with my parents, with my siblings, and my loved ones forever changed me as a person and my thoughts towards faith. I thought, if there is a God, how could they have done this to us? Taken someone from us with no chance to fight. For years, I blamed God, I blamed myself, I blamed the people who were responsible for her care in that moment. So much anger, resentment, confusion, and fear. It was out of fear that I chose to become a paramedic. I saw a way for myself to feel confident that I could be there and make a difference, that I could fight and give people a chance to be with their loved ones longer. I took responsibility for my fear into my own hands, and I manifested faith in myself and what I could do. Much like that of the Israelites as they fled Egypt, as the Egyptians broke the plain of sight, the Israelites expressed their fear to Moses. They questioned Moses, the direction, they questioned themselves, they questioned their faith. In that moment, with the threat of death on the horizon, they needed to manifest trust in themselves and faith in the universe. Often, the strongest catalyst for change and growth is through adversity or challenge. We have all experienced some degree of adversity and most certainly have been challenged. During those instances, believing in the intangible is difficult. But when something intangible becomes tangible, only then we truly experience something incredibly authentic. Sometimes we don't readily see those results. I remember that moment that faith became tangible for me. God did not speak to me, nor was there some overt sign like the parting of the sea. It was a culmination of an experience and a tangible result. My beautiful partner, Allie. I met her at the beginning of the pandemic, and we were both tired of being landlocked. So we decided to become digital nomads, which is a very popular thing to do. We safely traveled and isolated in different cities across the U.S. It was in Colorado at the beautiful Red Rocks Amphitheater where that journey of discovery began. Allie told me that she wanted to do the Kaddish for her grandpa Charlie at the park in remembrance of him. She also asked that we could do it for Corey as well. I had no idea how to do it or what to say. Allie walked me through the whole thing. We did it together in unison. Afterwards, we just stood there looking at the beautiful landscape, embraced. We decided from there that we would do it every time we were somewhere beautiful as a way to connect with those that we had lost. When my parents visited us in Denver, we were sitting at dinner and I told them about the Kaddish and what Allie and I planned to do for Corey. It brought us all to tears. It was then that I felt the intangible become tangible. It was in that moment I felt a closeness to faith that I had never felt before. That was the catalyst for beginning my true, authentic journey of faith. From there, I had many teachers and experiences that grew me closer to Judaism, whether it was Rabbi Bo Shapiro, Rabbi Nanus, teaching me the history of Judaism and what it means to be a Jew, Rabbi Eva teaching me Hebrew, and Cantor Gurney doing his best to not make me look like a fool when I'm reading Hebrew. I would be remiss if I didn't describe the impact of experiencing Jewish holidays with Allie's family. Whether it was observing Yom Kippur or lighting the candles for Hanukkah with her dad, Rob, her mom, Mo, her brother, Zach, and her partner, Rachel. It was also experiencing those events with her family on the East Coast, especially her grandma, Marilyn, and Aunt Randy, who explained the meaning of Shabbos and how that was the more correct way to say Shabbat. And if anyone told me otherwise, they should just forget about it. Through those experiences, a path that started in fear led to a path of self-discovery. If you find yourself wrestling with faith and yourself, just remember that you're not alone. The peace you seek will only be present in itself if you make the first leap. I'd like to thank Wilshire Boulevard Temple, all of its staff. I'm truly honored to be part of such a resilient group of people. And I'd especially like to thank my partner, Allie, for everything. I'd like to thank my parents, my family, my new family, my friends. It means everything to me that you guys are here for this special moment, and I thank you all. Thank you.
For our third Aliyah, I am delighted to call Yaakov Britton and Isabella Deba to the Torah.
Yamod Yaakov ben Avraham Usara.
Ta'amod Elisheva bat Abraham Sarah bat mitzvah.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam
Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar banu mikol ha'amim V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Hand this to you.
Okay.
You let it go. I'm right here. 1, 2, 3.
Vayet Moshe et yado al hoyam vayolech Adonai et hayam v'ruach שקדים, עזה כל הלילה, וישם את הים להורבה, ויבקרו המים. ויבואו בני ישראל בתוך הים, ויבשה, ויהיה מים לכם הומה מימינם ובסבולם. ויברחו מצרים, ויבואו אחריהם כל סוס פרעה רכבו, ובפרשיו אל תוך הים.
Yeah, let's open this up. Just a little. There we go.
אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני, ואמרו לאמור, השירה לאדוני, כי גאו גאה סוס ורחבו לעמה בים. עוזי וזמרתיה, ויהי לי לישוע, זה אלי וינבהו, אלוהי אבי ורוממנו. אדוני איש מלחמה, אדוני שמו, מה כבוד פרעה וחילו ירה בים, ובמיכו שלישה טובעו בים סוף. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Isabella and Yaakov are B'nei Mitzvah. Mazel tov, mazel tov. For our fourth Aliyah, it is my pleasure to invite Andrea Penn-Krause and Lorraine Tamburino.
Ta'amod edel bat label udevora haba mitzvah. Ta'amod Eliana bat Abraham v'Sara haba mitzvah.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Thank you.
Tehomot Yechas Yumu Yarduvim Solot Kimo Aven Yemin ha Adonai Nedari Bakoa. Yemin ha Adonai Tiratz Oyev. Uvrov Geon ha Taharos. Kamecha Tishalach Haron ha Yoklemo Kahakash.
Nashafta veruchaha kisamoyam salelu ka'oferet b'mayim adirim. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot hosefele natita yemincha tivla emo aretz nachita vechastecha amzugalta vechalta Nehalta vehosla et neve kochecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Andrea and Lorraine are B'nai Mitzvah. Mazel tov. It is now my privilege to invite Yaakov Britton to give his bar mitzvah speech.
I don't think you're going to find this on any of those pages you have in front of you. My search for peace is a reflection of my search for God. I reach back into my childhood searching for its beginnings. Its apex I seem to find here on this most blessed of days for me, a day when I will join the covenant as one more of our father Abraham's children. Wrapped in the emotional rags of a little lost child, I was once a lone traveler on a dark road that to me then knew no end. Still, I would listen with my heart to Mother Teresa when she said, "It is only in the silence of the heart that God speaks." I waited for the sounds of that silence, not with my ears, but with a part of me infinitely more powerful. A kind of quest, I suppose. I am hoping it will lead one day to a kind of inner sanctum, a place where I will hear only God's infinite, perfect wisdom. Of course, I trip, stumbling over impatience and my own ambition. It is the quintessential example of a reach far out exceeding its grasp. I collapse, worn by despair. Still forsaking everything, I pick myself back up and search for it. I am a 21st century Don Quixote battling windmills. Life is purpose bursting forth with meaning and movement. It is dynamic agency. And it is when this firebrand agency unites with like-minded beings that spirits open and we see God's perfection and love in everything around us. It is everywhere in all of us. We have only to open our hearts. A lifetime ago, a roommate asked what my goal in life was. I responded before I could even blink. To express love in everything I do, I have no idea where those words came from. I had never sat down to reflect on a response that to me still remains obvious. I don't, nor have I ever kept a diary to which I would have gone back and referred Later, I would read how Mrs. Onassis responded when someone asked her the same question. I imagine her rolling her eyes and quipping, "I want to live my life, not record it." An existence spent in an atmosphere of spiritual need isn't just lonely, it's painful. The soul's emptiness burns with anguish. Barring the Hale-Bopp comet and the Heaven's Gate kooks who venerated it, I thought I'd tried just about everything. I'd already rejected the Protestant religion into which I was born and raised. Protestant religion which to me rotted with the stench of cotton mather. Barely out of grammar school, I knew no love or compassion from their hypocrisy or their God. I was already dismissed and condemned to burn in the everlasting flames of an unforgiving hell. A priest in our local diocese was no help either, and the very nice young nun who taught at my sister's Catholic school was sweet. Still, I cannot remember the content of a single conversation we ever had. I was truly on my own. And then I found this sacred sanctuary and so many open hearts that continue to bring me joy in my life as a Jew. The bond I share with my newfound faith and fellow children of Israel is unshakable. It pulses through my blood. I could not live without it any more than I could live without the air that fills and sustains my lungs. I sat on the rooftop here in this temple more than a year ago now. I sat staring out at the Hollywood sign, reflecting on all that has brought me to this moment. Erica Jong wrote, "Life brings us into contact with spiritual advisors. The trick is not in meeting them, but in recognizing them when we do." I walked through these doors the first time with an open heart and an open mind. I leave and walk back through again, my soul rich and always fulfilled. Shabbat Shalom.
For our last but not least, our fifth Aliyah, I am delighted to call up Jody Levitas Francisco and Mena Kearns.
Ta'amod Chana bat Yaakov v'yota bat mitzvah. Ta'amod Miriam bat Abraham v'Sarah bat mitzvah. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamrak Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Shamu Amim Yirgazun Hilachaz Yoshvei Pelashet Az Nivhalu Alufei Adon Elei Moav Yokazei Morad Namogu Kol Yoshvei Hanan Tipol Alechem Emata V'fachad Bigdol Zeroacha Yidmu Ka'aven Ad Ya'avor Amcha Adonai Ad Ya'avor Amzu Kanita.
Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed kiva sus paro berichbo ufarashav bayam vayashev Adonai עליהם את מי הים, ובני ישראל הלכו ביבשה בתוך הים. ותקע מרים הנביאה אחות אהרון את הטוב בידך, ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה בתופים ובמחולות. ותען להם מרים, שירו לאדוני, כי גאו גאה, סוס ורוכבו, רמה וים.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Jody and Mena are B'not Mitzvah. Mazel tov! You have no idea what an achievement these people have accomplished. This was really difficult, and they did such a beautiful job. I'm so proud of all of you. It is now my pleasure to invite Isabella Deba. This is the student who came in on Zoom from Germany in the middle of the night for 6 months to be bat mitzvah and she flew in especially for this just a couple days ago. Isabella.
Thank you. Actually, for the first 3 months, I was here in person. Just the last 3 months.
The last 3 months. It felt like a long time.
Yes, it did. Some of our most precious values in Judaism are justice, freedom, and peace. These go hand in hand. One can't exist without the other. In today's Torah portion, all of these values are being challenged. According to the scripture, God saved Moses and the Israelites by hurling their pursuers into the Red Sea and thereby liberating them. God is described here as an angry warrior. In the Song of the Sea, the people celebrate the triumph and the destruction of their oppressors. Even under a non-literal reading of the text, or when one is careful to view the Exodus events in an historical context, it raises important questions that can be transferred into today's world. What means are justified under what circumstances to reach the values of justice, freedom, and peace? In the Jewish tradition, this image of a violent God is often softened by the addition of nuance. Rashi, one of the most known commentators on the Hebrew Bible and on the Talmud, offered his own unique interpretation on the Song of the Sea by stating that even in war, God is merciful. When force becomes justified, it needs to be applied carefully and one must remain humane. This Pasha has personal meaning for me because I was born by the Red Sea in my home country, Eritrea, meaning land by the sea in Greek. So this was an unexpected connection, which truly enhances the work that I have undertaken. And I look forward to continuing this journey into the future. I'd like to thank Worship Boulevard Temple for this opportunity to be here today and for offering this Adult B'nei Mitzvah program. Also, everyone who participated and who's helped organize it all, and especially Rabbi Nanus, Rabbi Cantor Eva Robbins, and Cantor Gurney for their teachings and valuable guidance. And I'd like to also add Rabbi Bo Shapiro, Rabbi Ashel, and Rabbi Stanley Davids. Shabbat Shalom.
So it is our tradition when the Torah is out to say a special prayer of healing for those in our lives who may need a blessing of healing, a spiritual healing, physical healing, emotional healing. And we're going to be doing that on page 271. Before we do that, though, if there's anyone in your lives that you would like to be blessed for healing, please stand up now. And when I point to you, say their names out loud so we can bless them.
Jamie Taylor and my mom.
Right here, okay. Thank you. You may sit down after.
Yahya Abraham ben Miriam.
Okay. We're going to do the Mishabera prayer.
Mishabera Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim Elna Rifonala Elna Rifonala Elna Rifonala
We now prepare to return the Torah to the ark. Cantor. And I'm going to invite James to do what we call Hagbah, which is hold up the Torah scroll so you all can see.
We rise. Yahallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkab shemo levado. Hodo ladet b'shamayim vayaren keren ve'amo tehila lechol chasida livnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Please be seated. Our last, but certainly not least, bat mitzvah speech is going to be given by our dear Lorraine Tamburino.
Thank you. I'm sure some of you are thinking about matzah, having some refreshments in a little bit. I promise you it's just going to be a few more minutes. I'd like to begin by acknowledging those who are standing here with me, who have taken one courageous step towards becoming more authentic, a step towards becoming more whole. Today marks a special day for all of us, and each of us have traveled a different path to Jewish commitment. But as you've heard, we all feel today truer to who we are and have acted on that reality, and that takes courage. To the clergy and professionals who work at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, thank you for touching the hearts of thousands and for maintaining a growing Jewish tradition, no matter how challenging the circumstances, Zoom and all. You have been there, keeping the community united and engaged. I met a student of the Choosing Judaism new class this past Saturday at our community Seder, who told me that more than 50 students are learning about Judaism this session. Every week, I receive a nugget of wisdom by taking part alongside dozens of others who want to learn more about our text in the hosted Torah study groups. Other countless programming has helped me tremendously to learn, expand, and just to be a better person. The enormous work that it requires to sustain a vibrant community doesn't go unnoticed. Family and friends of my new friends as well, thank you for joining us too, and I'd like to acknowledge my husband, who has been compelled to draw from the well of patience to navigate changes he didn't see in the horizon when we married nearly 10 years ago. We have a job to do. To my children who inspire me to be the best person I can be, thank you too. I'm here today largely inspired by you. Nearly 3 years ago, the reason that propelled me to learn more about Judaism, its values, its tradition of good deeds, was a combination of curiosity and need. I was seeking to learn how to teach my young children to be better people. And in the way, I have gained so much more. I also wanted to learn about the traditions of my neighbors. The more I read about them, the more that I saw that I could use this too as a framework for a life well lived. Which brings me today to how I'm choosing to confirm and affirm those choices. It requires that I actively choose to be a Jew in today's world. I must choose to go to the synagogue or not. I must choose to celebrate Jewish holidays or not. I must make the choice to get to know God through prayer and study or not. And these are intentional decisions that I'm making among many others that affirm who I am. Being an adult in our tradition means commitment to carrying out the mitzvot, a commitment to our values, to the Jewish people, and carrying out my spirituality even in mundane events. When you rise up and when you lay down, when you are at home and when you're away. It also asks that I be of service in a world that was left incomplete by God, intentionally, so that I and all of us can continue His work as co-creators. I personally see this as one of Judaism's most compelling ideas. So how does an incomplete world looks like? An incomplete world is a place where our actions are needed. A life of service is a life where we focus more on living by giving of ourselves to others than on taking space. It takes courage and dedication to live in such a world, because it can be very scary sometimes out there. And some may argue that we can only exist in this type of world with a survival of the fittest mentality. But I believe that that mentality can only lead us to take up more than what we actually need, resulting often in oppression and in scarcity. A world where we are partners in creation demands a great deal from us. Not only does it mean that we should not sit idly by when we see injustice, it means that we need to do our best to repair things and to redeem them. By extension, we also have to build towards justice. That is the redeeming part of the process. We build towards justice to reaffirm our own holiness, which is a gift. It resides as a divine spark inside each of us. By affirming my Jewish faith and values, I assert my choices, knowing full well what it entails. My Bat Mitzvah ceremony is a marker of my commitment to God as part of the Jewish people. To my children who are here today, I want you to know God gave you a soul with a purpose. And your soul's purpose is what makes you needed in this world. You are beholden to God for this precious gift. The only way you will find out your life purpose is to get to know God. And why is that? Because your soul is connected to God, therefore your purpose is also connected to God. You will get to know God by praying to God, cleaving onto Him, studying the text, and keep building on the work and wisdom of people who came before us for thousands of years. Be fair and compassionate, and I hope that I can deliver my commitment to be a model to you. Shabbat Shalom.
We're now going to return the Torah to the ark. Please rise.
Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkar shemo levado, hodo aleret.
I'd like to call up the B'nei Mitzvah to come up here. You haven't heard, you may be seated. You haven't heard enough speeches. So I want you to look at me.
Yeah.
See you.
Fill in this whole
Fill this whole thing.
all the way across.
This is for you. You are such an amazing group, and I am so proud of you. Though we started on Zoom, thank God we were finally able to meet in person these last several weeks, which has forged a bond between all of us that I know will last for years to come. We have created closeness, camaraderie, respect, and admiration for each other. We have not just studied together, we have shared ourselves and opened our hearts and grown together. We have become friends. Whether on screen or in person, your intelligence, your curiosity, your thoughtful questions, and desire to always know more have endeared you to me, and it was from the start. I know how much sharing this journey has strengthened you all and deepened you, and how much you supported and encouraged each other. You worked amazingly hard, and not only have you fulfilled your dreams, your own dreams, but you have also enriched the Jewish people with your love, commitment, and dedication to Torah, learning, and community. It is amazing how the 10 of you represent the tapestry of the Jewish people in all its beauty and variations. You are single or married, native-born or immigrants from other countries, Jews by birth and Jews by choice. You are new to Wilshire Boulevard Temple, or you have been here for generations. Together, you embody the deep connection we all share, no matter how different we may seem. It has been my honor to be one of your teachers, and my great pleasure to have reached this moment with you. Before Cantor Gurney and Rabbi Cantor Robbins gives you the priestly blessing, I would like to give you a blessing of my own. May you look back on your life and see where you have been and appreciate the wisdom that you have gained thus far. No one could have taught you all you've learned and understood. You have been shaped by your defeats and your successes. May you cherish the journey that you are on and choose what matters most to you. Move on from this moment with resolve in your heart to make each day a blessing, a gift to yourself and to those whose paths you cross. May you always remember that you are not alone, that you are part of the people Israel, and that a loving, caring presence is walking right beside you.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and watch over you.
יאיר אדוני פניו אליך וחונך.
May God shine light upon you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, shalom.
May God lift you up in strength and health and love and give you the most precious gift of all, the gift of peace. And let us all say, Amen. Mazel tov. Let's say the Shehechianu, first of all, the blessing that we sing when we accomplish something for the first time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
We're going to conclude in a few moments, and you're all invited to a reception out in the courtyard, which I guess we can, which way would we go out? Out this door here. But before we do, we have a little gift for our B'nei Mitzvah. They're each going to receive a beautiful silver Kiddush cup with their initials on it. And Cantor Eva has something to say to them, and then we're going to give them the gifts, and we're going to conclude with the Kaddish after that.
So please excuse my back, since I want to look at these lovely people. It has been such an honor to be part of your journeys. to watch you embrace our mother tongue, Hebrew, which is considered a holy language. It gives me great nachas. That means pride. I taught you that each letter is a tool for God to create, to innovate, and to explicate all that is possible in the world. You have mastered the precious art of chant, what the Kabbalist says is the highest form of expressing Torah. You have brought beauty to this congregation, to your families, and to the Holy One. My favorite statement in the tradition is from Psalm 92. In old age they shall still bear fruit. For me, this is most comforting. It's also very hopeful, right? That no matter what your age, you can continue to grow, to expand, and to begin anew. And as adults, each of you has just had a taste of bearing fruit later in life. May the gift of this cup remind you always of the joy that you brought today and the sweetness that it will bring in the future. May the wine from this cup overflow all of your lives.
Do you want to hand it?
Get the name? James Colford.
Take turns.
Mike Pearl.
Isabella Debist.
Menno Kearns.
Cam Schroeder.
Lorraine Tamburino.
Jody Levitas.
Francisco. Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Andrea Penn Krause.
Yaakov Britton.
Paige Pearl. Oh, yes. And now we can sing together with our hands together as well. Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov, Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov, Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov. Yehelanu, 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 Ulekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulekol Yisrael.
So even in our happiest moments, we still remember the loss of those who are no longer with us, and we always conclude with our Kaddish, which is on page 294. This is actually a prayer of blessing to God, thanking God that we were able to have our loved ones as long as we did. We're not going to read a list, but we are going to mention Robert Berg, who is a cousin of Jody's, who passed away during Shloshim these past 30 days. If there's anyone here whose name you would like mentioned for Kaddish, you may rise now and say their name out loud. Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We turn to page 294 and rise. Oh, where? Oh, so sorry. Thank you. We turn to page 294 and we all rise now. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yama divrach arutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chai echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lolmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yichadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Oseh shalom imroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, imru Amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom, everyone, and mazel tov to our B'nei Mitzvah.
Please join us outside for our reception.